We are live now. Good
Yes.
evening, everyone. It is immense pleasure to share that Sri Lekh Sood ji, who is a graduate in the commerce and qualified chartered accountant. He is the former CFO, having exciting professional experience over 3 decades in the industries. He has held various leadership roles in finance, taxation, controlling, and commercial domain in reputed US and European MNC like Philips, Foseco, Visa Inter Technology, Endurance, Jarfan, Sapurji Palamji Group. He has been actively involved in the compliance and litigation in the area of indirect taxation. He is a past chairman of the Finance and Taxation Panel, CII Marathwada, member of Excise Panel of the CII, and the member of MCCIA Pune. He has authored many articles on the GST, custom, and excise. He has also led the full-fledged implementation of the GST while he was in industry. He also led the 4-member team that won National Management Game Championship at AIMA and represented Indian and in Asian Championship held in the Hong Kong. So सर के बारे में मैंने आपको ब्रीफ बताया एंड इट इज ए रियली ग्रेट प्लेजर फॉर एडुकेटिंग आल्सो दैट सर आज हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पर हैं टू गिव द डेलिब्रेशन टू गिव द गाइडेंस ऑन ए पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक वेरी कंफ्यूजिंग टॉपिक दैट इज रेस्टोरेंट सेक्टर जीएसटी का इंपैक्ट जीएसटी के इम्प्लीकेशन रेस्टोरेंट सेक्टर के ऊपर क्या क्या है इन सभी टॉपिक के बारे में सर गाइडेंस करेंगे एंड आई एम रियली थैंकफुल लेक सर फॉर प्रोवाइडिंग द टाइम to the educating and guiding us. It's over to you, sir.
Thank you, Arunji, for so kind words and giving me such a nice introduction about me. First of all, I want to convey my deepest gratitude to Sri Arunji, Sneha ji, and Pooja ji for giving me an opportunity to share my views on this important topic of GST on restaurant services. So thank you very much. And so we can start now.
Yes, please.
Okay, so very good evening to all the online participants. And I welcome you to this webinar on GST on services. So we will try to make it interactive so that we do not become monotonous for either side, and probably on the online session the interaction can happen only through question answers, because we cannot openly talk, otherwise we will be able to difficult to handle it actually.
Right.
So let me put up the presentation. Just give me a moment, please.
Please. No issue, sir. Yes, sir, it's visible.
You can see?
Yes, sir, it is visible. Yeah, we can see this, sir.
It is visible?
Yes, sir, it is very much visible.
All right. So king should collect the taxes like honeybee, and it should be good enough to sustain, but not too much to destroy. So this is what Chanakya said in olden times, but it holds true even today, and I think it would hold true even in future. So we'll have to see, that how much it is true in present times. So in this session, I would intend to cover these topics. GST on restaurant. First, I will take up very briefly the introduction and history of restaurant services, the latest GST rates, Then in simple examples, we will understand the rates which are applicable for various types of restaurant services and catering services. Then how the taxation takes place when the supplies of restaurant services are made through e-commerce operators. Then ITC implications for the sector, whether it is really useful for the suppliers of restaurant services to go for a composition scheme, for opt for a composition scheme. And then I will list down certain open issues with respect to the taxation and especially GST. And finally, we will just recapitulate certain important points which we should take note of. So first, just to put perspective to the today's topic, I'll give some small information about the industry. There are about 53,000 hotels and 70 lakhs restaurants in the organized sector itself, and about 2.3 crore restaurants in the unorganized sector. So you can say this is quite a large number, and the tourism industry is actually good contributor to the revenue of the economy. The restaurant industry itself implies about 8% of the working force of India. As many of you may be knowing, since inception, the restaurant services, or we can say this food supply of food or sale of food, has been suffering with multiple taxes. Like before GST introduction, there was state excise which was levied, then sales tax was there, even hotel luxury tax was there. Then in 2011, service tax came to. So there were different statutes for which the one taxpayer had to comply with only for the purpose of taxation. And there were all these rates were also different. Even if you see after the introduction of GST, although the service tax and the um, excise they came under the purview of GST, but the rates have been changing very frequently, and there have been multiple rates. Like if you eat in a air conditioned restaurant, then different rate; for non air conditioned restaurant, different rate. But education, for this catering service, different rates. This is something due to COVID-19 pandemic, which is a big problem today. I think one of the industry which suffered most during this period and actually has been even suffering is the restaurant industry, because they were, I think, opened the last. But now things are opening up, looking up, and the recovery is also happening fast in the economy compared to, I think, what we were thinking. However, we will unfortunately see that some of the players in the restaurant business may not be able to restart their businesses because they could not sustain the fixed cost, and I think they will have to look for something else. This is something not a situation we would have liked to have, but many things have happened like this in COVID-19 which were unexpected. Towards the ease of doing business, the state governments are doing some effort in this direction. Like last week only, Delhi government had said that the standalone restaurants would not be required to have the permission from the tourism department to open the restaurant. Similarly, Maharashtra government also 3 days back they declared the restaurants as industry, and also they have also done away with certain licenses and permissions which were required. But in my opinion, I think whether this was the need for these people, especially those who have been stranded during COVID-19, I think if the support could have come in, the form of loans, easy loans to them, so that those who are stranded, at least they could start their businesses. Hope the government would take some action on this side as well. Although this is some pessimistic situation, but the in the middle, term, or in the longer term, I would say the industry definitely headed for a good, healthy 6 to 8% growth. And as all of us are doing now, if we want to eat in any restaurant or we want to get a food from any good restaurant, we log on to Swiggy app or Zomato app, and then find out which restaurant supplies what rates and all that. So digital platform sale happening through digital platform is becoming actually a necessity, because mostly people are only using this media to locate the suppliers. The brief history of taxation of restaurants, why I want to very briefly cover is this, because this is a very interesting history, as I told you, which restaurant services had. But let me put up a question. Food supplied by a restaurant is supply of goods or supply of services? Let us start, because when we have to interact, we have to start asking question, so that we know that we are live and we are able to understand this project properly. So can we have the responses of the audience on this? Arunji, can I see the responses or no? Okay. So many of you may be thinking that it is a supply of goods, because food is, if you see, it is a movable physical item. So in GST, it is classified as goods. Even before GST, it is classified. It is covered in the definition of goods even under the sales tax laws. But whether it is supply of goods or it is a supply of service. So I will take you back to the starting when the Constitution of India was introduced, and by entering 54 of the state list of 7th schedule of the Constitution of India in Article 246, the states were empowered to levy the taxes on the sale and purchase of the goods other than newspapers. So by these powers with the states, they were able to collect the sales tax on the sale and purchase of food by the restaurants. But as the time passed, there was a company known as Associated Hotels of India, which had a Cecil Hotel in Shimla. This is a very good, actually, Royal Hotel in Shimla, very old hotel there. So they were registered under the Punjab Sales Tax Act, and they were paying sales tax on the supply of food to guests in the hotel. In 1958, the company filed a declaration that sale of food and drinks in the restaurant is not pure sale of goods, but the guests enjoy many amenities in the restaurant and hotel, so it should be classified as a service and not goods. Because जब guest restaurant में आता है तो he does not only eat food, he enjoys so many amenities, especially in a restaurant, good restaurant. You will see there is a very good crockery, cutlery, very good furniture, air conditioning, music, very suited, booted waiters you will have. So there is a very, the guest is made at a very comfort and he enjoys the food. So the company said that, sir, it is not only a sale transaction of food, but there is a lot of service which is involved in this. So matter went to the Punjab and High Court, and they said that this in fact is a service, and they actually agreed with the associate and allowed the declaration. The matter traveled to Supreme Court, and in 1972 the Honorable Supreme Court agreed with the judgment of Punjab High Court and held that sale of food in a restaurant is predominantly a service. So this actually created, just a moment, I will just take a pointer. So this created a controversy. Now, what is the controversy? The apex court in this judgment said that this is a service, whereas the constitution said it is the sale. So there was a controversy. In 1982, the government of India amended the constitution and they introduced a new entry in the Article 246, which empowered to levy tax on the supply of food and drinks by whatever mode it may be. किसी भी मोड से हो, आप उसको take and carry it like a takeaway parcel, or you take it in the restaurant, wherever you take, it is actually not a sale of goods. So what, by introducing this entry, they said that this is a deemed sale of goods. Deemed sale means it is assumed to be sale of goods. It is not actually the sale of goods, but it is a deemed sale. So it is assumed to be sale. So the clause 29F, which was introduced, and the states were collecting sale tax on that, read as tax on the sale and purchase of goods includes a tax on the supply by way of or as part of service. So whether it is by way of service or it is just a part of the service or even in any other manner whatsoever of goods. You see, if here also it is written goods, being food or any other article for human consumption or any drink, whether or not intoxicating, where such supply of service is for cash, deferred payment, or other valuable consideration, which means the sale and purchase of food, whether by way of or as a part of service or in any other manner, the tax will be levied on that if there is a consideration for that. So very important part is that this supply should be for a consideration. So this was the introduced, and then the states were collecting the sale tax on this as deemed sale. But some intelligent officer in the department probably felt that the Supreme Court is saying that supply of food in a restaurant is a service, then why not there is a service tax on that? So in 2011, the government extended the service tax to restaurant services also. So they said it is 40% we will deem it as a service. So under section 65, it was deemed service. Under the sale tax, it was deemed sale of goods. Here it was deemed provision of service. So 40% of the total value of the restaurant bill was charged with applicable service tax if the food is taken in a air conditioned restaurant. Then the multiplicity of the taxes increased. The service tax also came in picture, and it went on up to June 2017. Then from July 2017, when the GST was introduced, then in the Schedule 2, which was annexed to Section 7, 1A, the entry 6B treated the supply of food in a restaurant as supply of service. So the Schedule 2 talks about if there is a supply which is a supply under Section 7.1, means it is held to be supply, it qualifies to be a meaning of supply, then there are certain activities which are listed in Schedule 2, which they have said that which activity will be treated as supply of goods and which activity will not be treated as a supply of goods but will be treated as supply of service. So this is supply of restaurant services, one of those entry which appears in Schedule 2 at serial number 6, and it says the following composite supply shall be treated as supply of service, and these talks of supply way of or as part of service. So it actually talks of the same thing which is there in Article 29AF. So here also you will note that under the Constitution it talks of deemed sale, but in GST it talks of service, deemed service. So then again there is a controversy whether this entry in Schedule 2 is really, whether it is really unconstitutional or it is not. So I think this, there is already one case of, I think, Kerala High Court, Kerala Bar and Restaurant Association, which is pending the Supreme Court, and I think once that decision comes, we will have more clarity on this. So this restaurant services will cover what now? It will cover pure sale of service, pure sale of goods, food, supply of food by way of service or as part of service, or even take away delivery of food, means home delivery of food. So all type of supply of food or drinks by whatsoever means it is done for a consideration, then it will be called as a supply of restaurant services. Let us now go to the latest position with respect to the uh, new rates which were made applicable by notification number 20/2019 dated 30th September 2019 and which were effective from 1st October 2019. But before we go to this, there are certain words which have been used in this notification. So it is important to understand the meaning and definition which is given in the notification itself for those words. Restaurant service is defined wherein it means that supply by way of or as part of any service of food. So this is basically same provided by a restaurant, eating joint including mess, canteen, whether for consumption or away from the premises where such food or any other article for human consumption or drink is supplied. तो इसको आप चाहे रेस्टोरेंट में लो या कैंटीन में लो या किसी मेस में लो या कैंटीन से या मेस से you take the package and take it home or take it anywhere for a picnic, all this will be covered in the restaurant service. Outdoor catering is defined as supply by way of or as part of service of goods, being food or any other article for home consumption or any drink, where at any exhibition halls, any event or conferences or marriage halls or other outdoor and indoor functions that are event based and occasional in nature. So अभी जो है outdoor catering means only when the food is supplied at these functions that are event based, means this is some event which is taking place. After the event is over, this provision of food there will not be there, that the canteen will not be there or that place will not be there for outdoor catering. So it is only held for a particular event, or and it should be occasional in nature. So it is not a regular service you are providing for there. Whenever there is an event, then only this food will be supplied from there. So only event based is classified now under outdoor catering. All other are classified into restaurant service. For hotel accommodation means supply by way of accommodation in hotel, in guest house, clubs, campsites or any other commercial places meant for residential or lodging purpose, including supply of time शेयर यूसेज राइट्स बाय वे ऑफ अकोमोडेशन। तो जहां पे अकोमोडेशन की सर्विस प्रोवाइड की जा रही है, इट कैन बी इन एनी होटल, गेस्ट हाउस या कोई क्लब, wherever it, even paying a guest accommodation, time sharing basis, paying a guest accommodation, or that B share, wherever it is. But it should be, B share will not come, sorry, because it should be for residential and lodging purpose. So the purpose should be the residential and lodging. That will be covering under hotel accommodation. What is the declared tariff? Declared tariff means charges for all amenities provided in the unit of accommodation, like furniture or air conditioner or refrigerator or any other amenity in those rooms in that unit of accommodation, but without excluding discount offered on the published charges for such unit. So जो published charges रहेंगे उसको बोलते हैं हम declared tariff. So hotels में normally different रूम्स के या सूट्स के डिफरेंट डिक्लेयर टैरिफ रहते हैं, टैरिफ कार्ड रहता है वो। इवन रिसेप्शन या आप रिसेप्शन पे देखोगे तो टैरिफ कार्ड रहता है, या उनकी वेबसाइट पे देखोगे तो उधर मिलेगा। तो उसका जो डिक्लेयर्ड प्राइस है विच इज अनडिस्काउंटेड प्राइस, दैट प्राइस इज कॉल्ड एज अ डिक्लेयर्ड टैरिफ। व्हाट इज अ स्पेसिफाइड प्रीमाइसेस? स्पेसिफाइड प्रीमाइसेस वो प्रीमाइसेस हैं in accommodation where the tariff of one single room or one single unit of accommodation is rupees 7,500 per unit per day or more. तो जिस भी होटल में अगर कोई भी रूम की डिक्लेयर्ड टैरिफ जो है वो अगर 7,500 रुपए पर डे के ज्यादा है, मतलब 7,501 ना कि 7,500, up to 7,500 will not be specified premises। 7,501 से लेके आगे जितना भी हायर प्राइसेस रहेगा that will be specified premises। तो अभी आप बोलोगे कि डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ रूम रहते हैं, किसी सिंगल रूम है, डबल रूम है, या किसी रूम में कुछ फैसिलिटीज अवेलेबल हैं, कुछ नहीं है। तो वो जो डिक्लेयर टैरिफ रहते हैं वो डिफरेंट रहते हैं। तो ऐसा होगा क्या कि अगर गेस्ट जो है वो 7,500 के रूम के नीचे वाले इसमें रह रहा है टैरिफ में, तो वो डिक्लेयर टैरिफ स्पेसिफाइड प्रीमाइसेस में नहीं आएगा। नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है। अगर उस होटल में या उस अकोमोडेशन में, चाहे वो गेस्ट हाउस है या इन है, उसमें अगर एक भी रूम 7,500 से ज्यादा है रेंट का, तो उसमें that whole premises will be called as specified premises. Now we look at the rates. So these rates were effective from 1st October 2019. It says all restaurant services in standalone restaurant, whether air conditioned or not, 5% GST without ITC. All food parcel, 5% GST without ITC. A restaurant having a room tariff of less than 7,500 per day, 5% GST without ITC. So इसमें 5% जहाँ पे भी रेट लगेगा वहां पे ITC सप्लायर को नहीं मिलेगा। जो स्पेसिफाइड प्रीमाइसेस में रेस्टोरेंट है, जैसे कोई होटल है, अगर उसमें किसी भी रूम की डिक्लेयर टैरिफ जो है मोर देन 7,500 है, तो और उसमें जो रेस्टोरेंट अगर सर्विस देते हैं, देन इट इज 18% GST विल बी चार्ज एंड द सप्लायर विल बी एबल टू क्लेम फुल क्रेडिट ऑफ इनपुट सर्विसेज एंड कैपिटल गुड्स। आउटडोर कैटरिंग सर्विसेज, जैसे हमने देखा कि आउटडोर कैटरिंग सर्विस जो है वो only events based services are there. So those events, whether they are inside the hotel or outside the hotel or restaurant, they will be called as outdoor catering, and for that the rate is 5% without ITC. लेकिन जो declared premises जो हैं, specified premises जो हैं, अगर from there you are providing this service, then the rate will be 18% without 18% without ITC. Okay, so if the hotel is having a specified premises, then if they provide the restaurant service in their restaurant to their guests or outsiders, they will be charged 18% GST. So hope this is chart is clear. This chart gives you a very clear summary of this. So in simple example, I will try to explain to you the summary of this. Let us say this is a hotel, okay, and this is a restaurant inside the hotel, and this is a catering contractor, and this is for events. Let us say this is for marriage function. So how does this work? First case, let us assume that this hotel is having any one room for which the declared tariff is more than 7,500 rupees. And then this restaurant, this hotel provides restaurant service in their restaurants. So how much GST is going to charge? 18% with GST, ITC. But if let us say they take the services of a catering contractor from outside, and he gives the supplies the food to the restaurant in the hotel. So because he is supplying where he is supplying in the specified premises, so he will also charge 18% with ITC. अभी एक सिचुएशन ऐसी रह जाती है कि जो सपोज आउटसाइड द होटल देयर इज अ इवेंट और even for canteen contractor or even for a catering contractor there is a event outside where they are to supply the food. One I think one check has been kept here is that if they try to give the service outside the premises of their hotel and then charge 5% GST, that would not be allowed. So if this hotel which is having a specified premises, अगर ये होटल even outside भी food service provide करता है, then also they will charge 18% GST. Even ये जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर है अगर ये रेगुलरली इस होटल में जहाँ पे स्पेसिफाइड प्रेमाइसेस है अगर वहाँ पे ये करता है तो he will also charge 18%. So the specific the food services or the restaurant services which are supplied from or in the specified premises, they would be charged with 18% GST. All other cases, the GST will be 5%. So like suppose it is not a specified premises, then 5%. Then contractor, even if he supplied in that restaurant, then also 5%. Even for outdoor catering, 5%. So in all other cases, the service will be provided at 5%. For hotel accommodation, the rates are if the room rent is less than 1,000 rupees, then nil, 1,000 to 7,500, 12% with full ITC, and above 7,500 with 18% GST with full ITC. What will happen if there is a bar and restaurant? So they also supply alcoholic beverages. So they will charge one. They will charge GST on the supply of food and state sales tax on the supply of alcohol. And both the value of the alcohol and the food service, they will have to shown separately on the invoice which the restaurant will raise, and they will have to charge the tax separately, or they can issue a separate invoice. Now another change which has come from October 2019 is earlier what was happening that this 18% GST or 5% GST or 12% GST which was charged on the hotel accommodation was based on the declared tariff. But now this has changed. The GST rate which will be applied will be dependent on the value or the amount charged to the guest by the hotel. So it is on the transaction value. Take an example that there is a room for which the declared tariff is 9,000. But after discount, this comes to 7,000 rupees. Then what GST will be charged? 12% or 18%? Because the transaction value is 7,000, which is less than 7,500, then the tax GST will be charged at the rate of 12%. However, now the declared tariff is relevant only for deciding the GST rate which would be applicable for restaurant services. So if you are providing the restaurant service from the specified premises, then the rate will be 18% with GST with the ITC. Otherwise, it will be 5% without ITC. Now, what will happen if there are declared tariff is different in different seasons, or the hotel declared different tariff at different places? Like in reception, they have one rate. On the website, they have another rate. On our website, they have another rate. Then, what rate will be applicable? The rate would be applicable if there is a different rate in different season. Then at the time of supply of service, means when the hotel is being used, the room is being used and bill is being raised on the guest, at that time whatever will be the declared tariff, according to that the restaurant services will be taxed. What happens if the tariff changes between booking and actual usage? In that case, the time at which the supply of the accommodation services is done, that is the rate which will be applied to amount billed to the guest. For the services provided by railways or IRCTC in railways or in platform, the rate of GST is 5% without ITC. But what happens this 5% GST without ITC rate or 18% rate? These rates are applicable for the food which is prepared in that restaurant or canteen or mess. This is not applicable for the packed items which are bought by the restaurant from the outside, means it gets from the suppliers. Like you take the biscuit packet or a thumbs up bottle, for that the rate which will be applied would be the rate which is applicable to that item. The snacks, you must be seeing that in these days there are sweet shop who also cook that samosa, kachori, tikki, then what is there, golgappa. All these things they actually also are supplying along with selling the sweets. So the question comes, what would be the rate applicable for those items like samosa and tikki? There was this question was raised by an applicant in the advance ruling, and the appellate advance ruling of Uttarakhand state held that the rate which will be applicable for those snacks would be 5% without ITC. And for the sweets, the applicable rate for the sweets will be applied. And it is better that they keep and maintain the separate account for the sale which is happening from their restaurant, basically from the snacks, and the sale which is happening for sweets from their sweet shop. If you see now these new rates which are there, they appears to be reasonable for industry, I think, because a lot of inputs, like grains or fruits or masalas, so many things which are there, they are actually at a 0% GST. So most of the inputs are at 0%. Only loss of ITC which will happen to restaurant is the GST which will be chargeable on your rent, on repairing, or on capital goods like furniture. So only that loss will be there. So otherwise, there is not much loss to this in the rate of 5% without ITC. And we will have to agree that one thing is now there, that this new structure is comparatively much simpler. GST on canteen services in the educational institutions. There was a entry in the rate notification before this 1st October 2019, where they mentioned that the supply of food from the canteen for mess in an educational institution like schools and colleges is also chargeable with 5% GST. However, this matter has been clarified by Circular 85 oblique 04 oblique 2019 dated 1/1/2019 that the services because the services provided by and to the educational institutions are exempt from GST. So the GST on GST on the food provision which is done by the educational institution for the students and their staff is exempt from GST. So there will not be any GST applicable on that. But one has to remember and keep a note that this exemption which is there, that is only available to school and colleges providing education from preschool to higher secondary and receiving canteen service from the contractor. So only those canteen services which are received from the contractor by these educational institutions providing the education from this to this will only be exempted. For others like IIMs or colleges, they will have to pay 5% GST to canteen contractor and they will not be able to avail the ITC. If they provide this service, because they will provide this service further, which they will not charge any GST. So this will be exempt service for which under section 72 17(2) the ITC will have to be reversed. What happens if these institutions prepare the food in their own canteen and serve to students and staff? Then this will be exempted and they will not be able to avail the ITC. For factory canteen services, this is also very relevant and important for us. Whether the food services to employees from a factory canteen is provided by the company by having their own canteen where they prepare the food will be 5% without ITC. So GST which they will charge will be 5% without ITC. And if they get it through a contractor, outside contractor, then also for that catering 5% GST he will charge. But the question which comes important is whether ITC is available to factory or not. So this is more important to understand because this is something which is clear as I told you in the while I was explaining the GST rates applicable for various type of services. For ITC, with respect to ITC on this catering service, whether ITC would be available, there are different views. But let us look at the provisions of the law. Under the Factories Act, suppose the factory is employing 250 or more workers, then under section 46, the factory is supposed to make a provision of the canteen inside the factory. If that is the case, that means under the provisions of Factories Act, if it is mandatory to make a provision of canteen, and if we look at the provisions of section 17 subsection 5 clause B, it says food and beverages, outdoor catering, so on. Okay, so there are many services which are listed here, provided that there is a proviso added, this proviso added which I want to highlight from 1st October 2019, that provided that the input tax credit in respect of such goods or services or both shall be available, where it is obligatory for an employer to provide the same to its employees under any law for the time being enforced. So जहाँ पे ये provision of service जो है or these services, if it is mandatorily required under any other law also, then ITC would be available. We also need to refer to the clause 9 when this amendment proviso was inserted, where this was explained in the clause 9 of the bill that apportionment of credit and blocked credit. So section 17(5) is talking about the blocked credit. In order to further expand the scope of eligibility of input tax credit. So what it is saying, to expand the scope means the proviso is inserted with the intention to extend the ITC benefit. Okay, let us also further look at the 28th meeting of the GST Council, which took place on 21st of July 2018, and the press release which was released on that for the minutes of the meeting. The point number 9 stated, scope of the input tax credit is being widened and it would now be made available in respect of the following. So there also the position of ITC availability, you can see the intention of the government for bringing these amendment was to basically extend the ITC to the factory on the food services availed from the contractor. There was also a press release which said that in Schedule 3, the items, one of the items which is there in Schedule 3 is the subsidy provided by employee to the employer, which follows from there it also means that the employer, if he is providing anything under the contractual agreement of service to the employee, then it cannot be called a supply and subjected to GST. So if we take all this into account, then one thing becomes clear that there is a good scope, I would say, that the ITC should be available in my view. Although there could be a risk of litigation, but I think we have a strong view. On service charges, which certain restaurants claim, they collect actually from the guest. They say that 10 to 15% service charges on the food bill. So those service charges are basically for what? They say that this is being collected as tips to be provided to the waiters and the staff of the restaurant. So the point is whether the GST should be charged on these service charges or not, because the restaurant is not keeping this money. They are not supposed to keep also. But the point is whether that can be claimed as service provided as pure agent and not included in the supply value. However, the CBIC has clarified that this is a service charges are to be included in the value of the supply. And I also personally feel that we should include it. We will share this presentation for the paucity of time. I cannot go more deeper into it, but there is a case for not including it in this. But I think to avoid the litigation, it is better to include it into service charges. For hotel which are charging and restaurant which are charging GST at the rate of 18%, please also see that the ITC should be available, would be available on furniture item, decorative item, DG inverter, general insurance, or repair and maintenance of hotel or equipment, security services, or the catering services, input of food preparation. So where 18% GST is charged on the output supplied by hotel and restaurant, they would be eligible for ITC on these items also. If you see the place of supply is important from the perspective that it tells us which type of tax is to be charged, CGST plus SGST or IGST. So in case of hotel, the place of supply is location of the immovable property. So in case of hotel services, it is always CGST and SGST. For the restaurant services, it is where the services are actually performed. So this is the place where the actually services are provided. So in this case also, the mostly these will be CGST and SGST. However, one has to note that services provided or goods supplied to SCZ will always classify under interstate supply, that is IGST, even if it is in the same state. In the case of the time of supply provisions, for the restaurant services, the time of supply, or rather for all the services, the time of supply is what? Date of issuance of invoice, if you issue the invoice within the prescribed time of 30 days, or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. And if you don't issue the invoice within a 30 days, then it is date of provision of service. Where it is not possible to determine the place of time of supply, then based on these two clauses, then it should be determined from the books of accounts of the recipient when he shows the receipt of these services. So now what is relevant to us in case of restaurant service or the hotel service is, if we receive the advance at the time of booking, then we will have to pay GST on that. We have to issue a receipt voucher when we receive the advance, and in case we want to refund that advance because the order is cancelled, then we have to issue the refund voucher. Sales through e-commerce operator. The e-commerce operator means what? When the person is supplying goods or services through electronic platform, and any person who supplies goods through electronic commerce operator is liable to get registered under section 24. That means wherever you are supplying the restaurant services through electronic commerce operator like Swiggy or Zomato, you will have to get registered even if your turnover is below threshold limit. However, by this notification 65 by 2017, exemption is provided for making supplies of services through electronic commerce operator. So services, if you supply through ECO, then you can avail the benefit of this threshold limit. So restaurant services, hotel services provided through ECO, you can take the benefit of basic threshold of 20 lakh or 10 lakh. And ECO has to file the TCS return, for which also the restaurant and hotels must not forget to claim avail the ITC. So when they file the return, it appears on your GST 2A and on the portal where you will have to avail this credit. So I will just explain you how does it work actually. Applies through electronic commerce operator. There are three parties. One is a restaurant, one is this ECO, and one is customer. So what happens? This restaurant gets listed on Swiggy. Customer goes to Swiggy app and he places a order for certain food items on the restaurant. Then Swiggy forwards it to the restaurant. The restaurant delivers via Swiggy. Swiggy collects it from restaurant and delivers to customer. And then the customer makes payment, either cash payment or card payment or online payment. And at the end of the day, this electronic commerce operator, they send statement of affairs along with the net payment to the restaurant. What is the statement of affairs? This actually lists down all जितने भी बिल वो पर्टिकुलर रेस्टोरेंट के कटे हैं उस दिन के, उसका सारा डिटेल्स उसमें रहता है. एंड जो नेट अमाउंट कैसे आता है, टोटल जो कस्टमर ने बिल पेमेंट किया वो उसमें से जो स्विगी है वो क्या करता है, अपना कमीशन काट लेता है अलोंग विद जीएसटी, और साथ में टीसीएस भी डिडक्ट कर लेता है। तो अगर आप देखोगे तो इसका बिल कैसा होता है ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर का। ये रेस्टोरेंट का बिल है, लेट अस से 100 रुपीज, तो आफ्टर डिस्काउंट इट बिकम्स 90, सो ही विल चार्ज 5% जीएसटी, सो बिल हो गया 94 का। नाउ ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर जो है वो अपना सर्विस चार्ज करेगा, उसके ऊपर 18% जीएसटी एप्लीकेबल है सर्विस फी के ऊपर, so 1.80 he will charge the GST on 10 rupees, so this comes to 11.80 rupees. So what is the net payable to e-commerce operator? 82.70. इसमें से टीसीएस 1% के ऊपर काटेगा, लेकिन 1% किसका नहीं काटेगा, वो 1% किसका काटेगा, नेट वैल्यू ऑफ सप्लाई। नेट वैल्यू ऑफ सप्लाई जो है दैट इज 0.9। जो थर्ड है नेट वैल्यू, नेट ऑफ रिटर्न्स, सेल्स रिटर्न्स, so 81.80 he will give to the operator, to the restaurant. If you see the composition scheme, turnover up to 1.5 crores, the supplier can avail this scheme. 75 lakh limit is there in special category states. The main issue which is there is that he cannot supply the goods through e-commerce operator and he will not be able to take the ITC. So where it will be useful? It will be useful for the restaurant supplier who does not want to sell through e-commerce operator and who is coming under 18% bracket of GST, because कंपोजिशन स्कीम में भी 5% विदाउट आईटीसी है एंड नॉर्मल रेगुलर रजिस्टर्ड टैक्स पेयर के लिए भी 5% है। तो इट विल बी ओनली मेकिंग सेंस फॉर द पर्सन हु इज कवर्ड अंडर 18% ब्रैकेट and he does not want to get into extensive compliance। नेचुरली कंपोजिशन स्कीम में बहुत कम रिटर्न्स एंड कंप्लायंसेस रहते हैं। इसमें जो रिवर्सल 42 एंड 43 में मींस व्हेन यू आर सप्लाइंग एग्जम्प्ट सप्लाई एंड टैक्सेबल सप्लाई, तो आपको आईटीसी जो है वो एग्जम्प्ट सप्लाई वाला जो है वो रिवर्स करना पड़ता है। तो इसमें क्वेश्चन ये आता है कि जो लिकर जहाँ पे सप्लाई होता है बार एंड रेस्टोरेंट में, वो लिकर की वैल्यू जो है वो एग्जम्प्ट सप्लाई में इंक्लूड होगी या नहीं होगी? बिल्कुल होगी, वो एग्जम्प्ट सप्लाई में इंक्लूड होगी, बिकॉज दिस इज अ नॉन टैक्सेबल सप्लाई अंडर सेक्शन 9 एंड all non-taxable supply are also included in the exempt supply. इश्यूज क्या है इसमें? इश्यूज ये है कि जो गवर्नमेंट ने अब जो 5% विदाउट आईटीसी जो रेट नोटिफाई किया है, ये रेट में जो आईटीसी अलाउ नहीं कर रही है गवर्नमेंट, whether the government has, central government has powers to do it, because this notification is given under section 16(1) of the CGST Act, where it only gives the authority or the power to specify conditions and restrictions, but it is not giving the power to withdraw the right to ITC itself. So this is something I think this should have been made optional, that if somebody wants to opt for 18%, he can opt for 18%, or somebody wants to opt for 5%, he can do that. What happens in case of takeaway parcels? It is basically there is no service, but still 5% ITC is supplied, the same as the supply of food in the restaurant. Sorry. Composition scheme जो है, whether it is really required for the restaurant services, TCS का compliance हुआ in case of restaurant, I think, because the TCS or TDS का main purpose is to basically keep the this supply chain intact. तो जहाँ पे ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर के थ्रू सप्लाई हो रही है रेस्टोरेंट सर्विस की, तो नेचुरली वहाँ पे जो सप्लाई चेन है दैट इज मेंटेन, so tax ITC chain is not broken. So in that case I don't think there is a need for the TCS. So this was some pre-supply during COVID. If you do pre-supply, I think there should not be any GST applicable on that. In case of composite package, like if hotel gives accommodation, then they also give free food. whether it will be the composite supply of accommodation service, and the rate may be taxable at 12% or 18%. Similarly, the training and seminar, this is basically supply of ITC services for which the GST is applicable at the rate of 5%, because this is a composite supply of restaurant services. So main takeaways from there is that the now rate is simple. One more important is that you please keep in mind that GSTN number should be displayed in the conspicuous place at the restaurant. Threshold limit is applicable. Do not claim ITC if you are charging 5%, and recipient can and must claim TCS before you file the GST 3B return, so that your cash payment is less. And for factory, I think it is must be examined whether IT should be available, should be availed or not. So this what all I was to say on this. So we can take the questions now. Arunji, hello.
Yeah, hello, sir. I request all the participants to raise question if they have any query or any question relating to today's topic. I request everyone to please raise those questions. Sir, it is very nicely delivered. All aspects related to restaurants are covered in this webinar. I really liked it.
This is a question or compliment?
It's a compliment, sir, not a question at all. Yeah.
So there are no questions coming in, or there are no questions at all which have come so far.
So far, there are no questions. I request everyone, whosoever are present in this webinar, please raise their queries. If they have anything related to questions, then please ask through chat box. I think there is no question. It is very well delivered, sir. So nobody has any doubt relating to this topic.
Oh, so either it was properly explained, or it was not understood properly at all.
No, sir. I think it is very well explained. So there is no doubt remained. All aspects, everything has been covered in this thing. The time of supply is covered, the value of supply is covered, the place of supply is also covered. In different scenario, what will be the place of supply? And the most important thing was that selling the food through e-commerce operator like Swiggy, Zomato, etc. That part is very new, and it is very common these days. Most of the eating outlets, because of this pandemic situation, are selling their items through these uh, platforms only. Even we also order food through Swiggy or Zomato rather and avoid to go to the restaurants.
Right.
So yeah, and that part is very well covered in this webinar. I'm very thankful to you for taking this topic and delivering it very well.
Okay, so I thank you all the participants for sparing their time, especially on Sunday evening. So really thank you very much for your participation, and I also thank you Pooja ji and Arun ji for arranging this webinar. And I think we will plan another webinar soon on this tour and travels. So we will, I think, announce the date very soon.
Okay. So one question has come from Mr. Vijay Kumar.
Ji.
What is the GST rate for bar and restaurant?
Yeah, so in my presentation, actually one slide was covered on this bar and restaurant GST rate. So
Yes.
for the liquor portion, there is no GST because there is a state sales tax which is applicable on that. And for the restaurant services, for the food services, the 5% ITC, 5% GST without ITC will be applicable.
Yes.
So you will have to keep the taxable value of liquor separately and the restaurant service separately because the taxes to be charged are separate on both the taxable values.
And sir, what does that document called? Is it called bill of supply or tax invoice
No,
or?
it be, no, that is where I'm saying is that there are two things. One is that it can be tax invoice, where the
Hmm.
value of liquor can be shown separately and the tax can be state tax can be levied separately. But preferably there should be two invoices for
Okay.
liquor sale. There should be bill of supply because this is not a taxable item,
Mhm.
and for the food services, the tax invoice should be raised.
Okay. Okay.
So
I think
it is preferable to issue two invoices, but normally in the restaurant industry, normally people don't do it. So in the one invoice, they actually show both.
they sure below the line they mentioned the amount of that bar services.
Yeah, correct.
विजय जी, I hope आपका doubt clear हो गया होगा. If you have any other question, then please ask. Thank you, Vijay ji. So, thank you, sir, for delivering the webinar. Vijay ji is saying, I got it, and sir, thank you. And we pay a vote of thanks to you for uh, accepting our request to take the webinar. And I think we will soon come back with the tour and travel topic on the same
Yes.
platform.
Thank you very much, and
Thank you,
have
sir.
a nice evening.
Same to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.